So when I first started learning how to crochet, I would read directions that would say, and whip stitch together. And through trial and error, I've eventually come up on some methods of whip stitching together that work a little better for me than others. So I've got 9 one-round granny squares here, and I'm going to join them into 3 rows, and then I'm going to take those 3 rows and I'm going to join them so that we have a 9 patch or 3 by 3 array of these one-round granny squares. These are all made and ready to go. They each have a chain 1 corner, which means that you've got 1 stitch here where we're going to join, and then 1, 2, 3 more for the granny shell, and then 1 more. So a total of 5 stitches across, and we're going to be doing 5 whip stitches vertically and then 5 whip stitches horizontally. So I'm going to start. I have them all lined up here, and I've arranged them. Since the gold, I won't be joining it to anything. I have it up here so that I can do the green. But I'm going to fold these 2 over right here, and I'm going to thread the end of the yarn onto my yarn needle. And now I'm going to go through the corresponding chain 1 space on the magenta, then go through on the green one, and I'm going to pull that through. And because I'm always afraid things are going to fall apart, I tend to do that twice on the corners. It's probably more than you need to do. I probably don't need to worry about it, but that's who I am. So if you're the kind of person who can do one, awesome. I'm not that person. Then you go under both loops of the next set of corresponding stitches. That should be the 3rd and 1st double crochet respectively. Now we're going to go through under both loops of the 2 middle double crochets, and then we will go through the 2 loops of the last set of double crochets. So now we have the chain 1 corner at the other end, and we're going to go under both loops. And depending on your personality, you'll either call that a day or you'll go through the next one. And because of my personality, I go through the next one. So now this is what it looks like, and I'm ready to join the gold square to the magenta square. So I fold those over, and again I go around and through the chain 1 of the corresponding stitch, under both loops of the chain 1 of the corresponding stitch on the gold. Then I go through the magenta, and because I'm a bit of a nervous Nelly, I'm going to secure it with another stitch through. Then I'm going to do the next 3 double crochets, and now I'm back to my next corner. So I'm going to go twice, and I have 1 row done and ready to be joined to the other 2 rows that aren't done yet. So now I will just proceed as I did previously. I'm going to set that aside a little bit. I've got the purple and the blue together. And there's my chain 1. The chain 1 can be harder to see when you're working with it, that chain 1 corner, but it does make a really nice firm fabric. So if you're doing something like a purse or a mat of some kind where you don't want it to be very drapable or very pliable, it's a really good choice. So there we've got 2 squares of the center strip joined. And we've got periwinkle and a dark green. I think the dark green is called medium thyme. And so we're going to go around, go through the under both loops of the chain 1. And again, we'll do that twice, or I will do that twice. You do it however you see fit. And 1, 2, 3, and then we've got that chain 1 corner again. So now we have our second row done. So moving right along, this one I'm doing the reverse so that the yarn ends are in toward the rest of it. So we'll go from left to right on this one. I believe this is coral and light raspberry. So I go to find the corresponding single crochet, which I eventually do, and I go under both loops. I do that twice, and then I go under both loops of the corresponding stitches of the next 3 double crochets on each side. And then I'm back to my corner. Well, not back to my corner, I'm to the next corner. I secure that twice with a whip stitch. These things don't fall apart. That's, if you don't want it to fall apart, this is a really good way to do it. Whip stitching can be a little time consuming, but it's very traditional, and sometimes it just kind of gives you that that same look. It's a very nice look. It uses less yarn than, say, single crochet or slip stitch would, but it is more labor intensive if you make a mistake to pull it out. So again, we're going to go under both loops of the corner corresponding chain 1s, and then we do that twice, or I do that twice. Then I go under the 2 loops of the corresponding stitches for the next 3, and pull out some dog hair along the way. I have a very devoted dog, which means I have a lot of dog hair in my projects. So here we have 3 rows ready to be joined. So I'm going to start from the bottom up, and I'm going to start with the gold because I'm right-handed, so it's a little easier to work from right to left. And if you're left-handed, you should set up the direction of the yarn so that you are able to work the direction that's more comfortable for you. So again, I'm going to go around, and I secure that twice. Then I just do the next 3 very carefree. And then you'll see we get to this corner that we've already worked before in the other direction. And I like to work that in this direction as well. And again, I work it twice. Now I'm ready to move on to the next one. I'm just going to leave that there for now. I'm not going to stop to weave in the ends. I always like to I weave in ends at the at the very last moment because I like to be able to change my mind. So now I've got the magenta threaded, and I'm going to move across here. And so 3, 2, 1. So here is my blue. It's a little crowded here, what with the previous stitches, but I've got a good yarn needle so I can get in there. And even though I probably really don't need to do that twice, I'm a creature of habit, and I will do that second one as well, except I got it all wrapped around. And so now I have the next 3 stitches. It'll be very easy. And now I will do the last corner of this center square. And I'm ready to do the last square of this row. So you can see that joining with the whip stitch is not fast work. But I personally find it very rewarding. A lot of people will say, oh, well, I'm not that patient. And the truth is, neither am I. I'm not particularly patient. I am pretty stubborn. So, you know, if anybody's ever called you pig-headed or something like that, this really might be for you. You might be I prefer to think of it as determination, but that's not how it generally gets interpreted. So now I have my second row done, and I'm gonna, whoops, I also have it upside down. There we go. So now I'm going to do this third row, and I'm going to start over here, work my way to the right, and then if I get really ambitious later tonight, I'm going to weave in all these ends, and I will have a new coaster for coffee, because I can never have too many coasters. I love coffee. I have a gene, according to 23andMe, that makes it more likely that I will drink more coffee than the average person. Except for the fact that people like me who drink a lot of coffee tend to hang out with people who drink a lot of coffee. So there's that. First stitch, so now we'll put the yarn on this bent tip yarn needle, and we will resume our joining. I really, in talking about yarn needles, I really prefer bent tip yarn needles. I came across them on accident when I was working on a piece that had over 3,000 little squares, and I kept losing my yarn needles. It was driving me crazy, and so I went to the yarn shop, and she said, oh, well, maybe you should have this one with a chibi. And a chibi is just a little plastic case for holding the yarn needles. And, you know, mostly I thought she just wanted to make more money because it was more expensive. But I was tired of losing my yarn needles, and I was spending a lot of money on them. So I went ahead and I put out the money for these fancy bent tip yarn needles and a fancy chibi. And I noticed that it shaved off several seconds per join. And when you're doing, you know, literally thousands of joins, those seconds add up. And so I became converted to the aluminum bent tipped yarn needle. It's lighter weight, and that bent tip just really helps you get where you need to go. So this is one time where I think the tool really makes a difference in your level of aggravation and your ability to get the job done. And I cannot say enough good things about Clover and Haya bent tipped yarn needles. So anyway, so we had 9 squares, and I've been chatting and doing all of this, and it's taken us about a quarter of an hour to get that done. And hopefully you found that helpful and you can use it in your own